Hi, my name is Mary McTighe. I'm going to be presenting on Prebycusis. What is it? Prebycusis is a hearing loss that occurs over time as an individual grows older. So this just means as an individual is getting older, they're losing their hearing. As we discussed earlier in the semester, there are three types of hearing loss: conductive, sensorineural, and a combination of the two. Prebycusis is a sensorineural hearing loss, which means it's damage to the inner ear. Basically, presbycusis is just the natural aging of the auditory system. You're hearing things your entire life, and eventually your ears do get tired. Some of the symptoms that occur when you have presbycusis are higher pitches of sounds are the first that are unable to be heard by those who are affected. So those really high-pitched tones are really hard to hear. This is why oftentimes when people realize they're losing their hearing, they find it easier to hear men's voices than women's voices because men's voices are deeper and the higher pitches are harder to hear for them. The speech sounds might start to sound muffled. They may only be hearing the beginning or the ending of words. The individual may have a hard time understanding consonants. So they do hear the vowels, but they're not sure what word it might be because the consonant is misheard. They're constantly asking others to repeat themselves, and it becomes harder to understand others with excessive background noise or in a crowd. So if you're in a cafe, a restaurant, a concert, unless you're really right in front of the person and reading their lips, even so, it is very hard to understand someone else if you have presbycusis. And oftentimes it's between the ages of 65 and 74. So like I said, it's more of the older population. Some other symptoms, like I said, the consonants are harder to hear, especially the sounds of the letters S and the sound TH, so S and Th may become unclear and indistinct to the individual trying to interpret the sounds and therefore have an impact on how the conversation is being understood. Obviously, if you mishear an S or you mishear a Th and you don't know what the person is saying, it's very hard to keep up with the conversation. It does affect everyday conversation, but it becomes more prominent, like I said, when they're in a noisy environment. So yes, if someone's home with their family, it may be hard to hear for them, but especially when they're out and everyone else is a part of the conversation, and this person is clearly struggling, then they may be suffering from presbycusis. The causes. Now, there's not any distinct reason why an individual may have presbycusis. But it simply just comes with aging for most individuals. A lot of the times it might not even be diagnosed. We just know that people just think, oh, like you're older, you're losing your hearing, but oftentimes it would be presbycusis, but individuals may not want to go to a hearing professional. However, if an individual is exposed to excessive noise throughout their life, this may increase their chance of presbycusis. So if they had a job as a construction worker, or they were always maybe around loud music, this does increase their chances because the hair cells in the inner ear and the cochlea that help to sense sound and hear better become damaged. So the picture to the left is the normal hair cells, and to the right would be the damaged hair cells, which does affect the individual's hearing. Diagnosis. Oftentimes, many older individuals lose at least a portion of their hearing and refuse to believe it. Of course, not everyone wants to get old. Society has put that on us, that aging is a bad thing. So when an individual realizes they are losing their hearing, they refuse to believe it. They're not getting that old. They still hear fine. But in many cases, it is a family member or friend that urges that individual to see a hearing health professional. Because yes, it is frustrating for that individual, but as the person's family with presbycusis, it can be frustrating for them too, as they're always repeating themselves or having to deal with it. This then would probably lead to a hearing aid for that individual, and it's very simple. Hearing aids, especially nowadays, have become very common, and it's not a difficult process. Like I said, treatment, you would consult with a hearing health professional. So this includes maybe just your physician, then they'll send you to an ENT, and then probably eventually the last step would be an audiologist, which would find a hearing aid for you that maximizes your hearing and understanding of your speech around them. Now, communicating with an individual with presbycusis. Regardless of the hearing aid or not, they still may have trouble hearing, so it's important to face the person you are speaking to. Even if they're not the best lip reader, it can help them to understand more or put the puzzle pieces together if they're able to read your lips. Avoid background noise. It just becomes more clear. This is for anyone, but especially someone with presbycusis. If someone is in the light, it again helps the lip reading. They can see them, they can see how they're gesturing, how the conversation is going to flow. If you can't see the person well, then it may be hard to understand the conversation. Do not speak too fast or too slow. I think oftentimes people try and speak extra slow, but the individual who has presbycusis hasn't heard speech that slow their entire life, so why would it start to slow down now? So I think at a normal pace is good for them to hear and for them to lip read. And just simpler sentences. If things can be simplified, then it's just easier for them to understand a shorter sentence. Some statistics: nearly half of people over the age of 75 do have trouble hearing, and one of the most common conditions affecting elderly adults is presbycusis. And 1 in 3 of the people from the age of 65 to 75 do have difficulty hearing. So as the chart shows below, the prevalence in percentage and the age, as you can see, the older an individual gets, the harder it is for them to hear. So this is just a summary that I found of pretty much everything I've told you, and if I've missed anything, it can help you better understand presbycusis. Just find it.
We all lose some of our hearing as we age. In fact, age-related hearing loss is quite common among people who are in their 60s and 70s. As we age, our ability to hear high-frequency sounds is reduced. It becomes more difficult to hear consonants such as S, T, K, P, and F. Women's voices and children's voices become harder to hear. It also becomes more and more difficult to hear in noisy environments, such as social gatherings and parties. An age-related hearing loss is a so-called sensorineural hearing loss. The reason for this is damage to the tiny hair cells in our inner ears. Age-related hearing loss cannot be cured, but it can be treated with modern digital hearing aids. Hearing aids will help you hear better. If you think you might have an age-related hearing loss, you should have your hearing checked. You can find out more about age-related hearing loss at the world's leading website.
Okay. So that is just an overview of everything I talked about. So just my own personal summary. Presbycusis is an age-related hearing loss that is a gradual loss of hearing in both ears. It really isn't one or the other, it's mostly both of them. It's a common problem that happens with aging. About 30% of adults over 65 do have hearing loss in general, but specifically presbycusis. And because it does happen so slowly, some people are not aware of the change at first. Most of the time, like I said, people around them will notice it first. And it is not a reversible condition, so it is important to try and prevent it as much as possible, although it is hard to, just like I said, avoiding loud, busy environments. Here's my works cited. Thank you.